Why you can't stop thinking about that one person your brain is lying to you. You can't get them out of your head. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter how hard you try, they are always there. You wake up in the morning and before you even check your phone, before you even remember what day it is, you think about them. You close your eyes at night hoping sleep will give you a break, and instead your mind just plays every conversation, every moment, every little thing they ever said to you on a loop that never stops. And the worst part? You have no idea why. You didn't choose this. You don't want to feel this way. But something inside you just won't let go, and it is driving you crazy. Here is what I want you to know before we go any further. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are not losing your mind. What is happening to you right now has a very real explanation, and it goes much deeper than just missing someone. Your brain is running a program it was never taught how to stop. And by the time this is over, you are going to understand exactly why this person has taken over your thoughts, exactly why you cannot force yourself to forget them, and exactly what is actually going on underneath all of that pain and confusion. So stay with me because this is going to change the way you see everything. Let's start at the very beginning. The moment you first felt something for this person. It doesn't matter if it was a slow build or if it hit you all at once. At some point, something shifted. You went from seeing them as just another person to feeling like they were somehow different. Maybe it was something they said. Maybe it was the way they looked at you. Maybe it was one specific moment that you have replayed so many times you could describe every detail of it from memory. Whatever it was, your brain noticed it. And when your brain notices something that feels significant, it does something very powerful. It releases dopamine. Now you have probably heard the word dopamine before. Most people think of it as the happiness chemical. But that is not exactly right. Dopamine is not about happiness. Dopamine is about wanting. It is the chemical your brain releases when it thinks something important or rewarding is about to happen. It is what makes you reach for your phone when you hear a notification. It is what makes you keep scrolling even when you told yourself you would stop. It is what makes people go back to gambling even after they lose. Dopamine does not make you feel good. It makes you feel like you need more. And when your brain releases it in response to a person, that person becomes someone your mind cannot stop seeking out. But here is where it gets really interesting. And this is the part that most people never learn. Dopamine is not released when you get what you want. It is released in the anticipation of getting what you want. It is released in the uncertainty, in the waiting, in the not knowing. Scientists have studied this in great detail, and what they found is shocking. The less predictable a reward is, the more dopamine your brain releases in pursuit of it. This is called a variable reward schedule, and it is the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. You don't know if you are going to win, and that not knowing is exactly what keeps you pulling the lever. The person you cannot stop thinking about is your slot machine. Every text, every look, every moment of connection was a win. But the wins were never consistent, never guaranteed, never certain. And so your brain learned to stay on high alert at all times, always scanning, always hoping, always wondering if the next moment would be the one where everything finally clicked. Think about the people in your life who have always been steady, always been consistent, always been clear about how they feel about you. Now think about how often your brain obsesses over them. Probably not very much, because certainty does not trigger dopamine the way uncertainty does. Your brain doesn't need to chase something it already has. But the moment someone gives you mixed signals, the moment you cannot fully read them, the moment you don't know where you stand, your brain goes into overdrive. It becomes obsessed with solving the mystery. It cannot rest until it has an answer. And if that answer never comes, it just keeps searching. Forever. This is why you can be deeply in love with someone who treats you consistently and still find your mind wandering to someone who barely gave you the time of day. This is why the person who was always there for you somehow feels less magnetic than the one who kept you guessing. It sounds unfair. It sounds almost cruel. But it is just biology. Your brain is not choosing who is better for you. It is choosing who created the strongest chemical reaction inside you. And the strongest reaction almost always comes from the most uncertain situation. Now let's talk about something that is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. You have probably tried to stop thinking about this person. You have probably told yourself to move on. You have probably tried distracting yourself, staying busy, spending time with other people, throwing yourself into work, watching things, listening to things, doing anything you can to fill the space they left in your mind. And for a few minutes, maybe even a few hours, it works. And then something happens. A song comes on. You drive past a place you went together. You see something that reminds you of them. And suddenly they are right back, front and center, like they never left. And sometimes it is not even a reminder. Sometimes you are sitting in complete silence doing nothing at all, and they just appear in your thoughts with no warning and no explanation. There is a reason for this, and it is called the rebound effect. Psychological researchers discovered something fascinating about the way the human mind handles suppression. When you tell yourself not to think about something, your brain has to first identify what you are not supposed to think about in order to avoid it. Which means in the very act of trying not to think about them, you think about them. It is a trap built into your own mind. The more effort you put into forgetting, the more mental energy you are actually directing toward them. Trying to suppress a thought is like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can do it for a while, but the moment you lose focus, it shoots right back to the surface harder than before. This is not a personal failing. This is not proof that you are too emotional or too sensitive or too attached. This is your brain doing exactly what brains do. And understanding this matters because most people who cannot stop thinking about someone spend enormous amounts of energy blaming themselves for it. They feel pathetic. They feel embarrassed. They feel like something is wrong with them for not being able to just move on. But there is nothing wrong with you. You are experiencing one of the most well-documented psychological phenomena in human behavior. The problem is not that you care too much. The problem is that your brain has been given an unsolved equation and it will not stop working on it until it finds a solution. Let's go even deeper, because there is another layer to this that most people never consider. When we connect with someone, even briefly, even incompletely, our brain begins to build what psychologists call a mental model of that person. It starts to predict how they will behave, what they will say, how they will make us feel. Every interaction adds data to this model. And your brain, which is essentially the most sophisticated pattern recognition machine that has ever existed, becomes invested in that model. It starts to see that person as part of its map of the world. And when that person disappears, when the connection breaks before the story is finished, your brain doesn't just feel sad. It experiences something closer to confusion. The model is incomplete. The pattern has no ending. And your brain, which cannot tolerate an unfinished pattern, keeps returning to it trying to complete it. Think of it like a song that cuts off right before the final note. Every time you hear it in your head, your brain tries to play that last note. It cannot help it. The incompleteness is almost physically uncomfortable. The person you cannot stop thinking about is that unfinished song. Your brain is not looking for them exactly. It is looking for resolution. It is looking for the note that never played. And because that note exists only in possibility, only in what could have been or what might still be, your brain has an infinite amount of searching to do with no finish line in sight. This is also why breakups and almost relationships are sometimes harder to get over than full relationships. When something ends cleanly, when you have experienced the whole arc of it, your brain can process it and file it away. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But when something ends before it was supposed to, when there were still questions unanswered and feelings unexplored and things left unsaid, your brain refuses to close the file. It keeps it open. It keeps revisiting it. It keeps running through alternative scenarios trying to find the version where the story reaches its proper conclusion. Here is the twist that very few people see coming. The intensity of how much you think about someone is not necessarily a reflection of how much you love them. It is often more a reflection of how much uncertainty was involved. This is a hard truth to sit with, because we want to believe that the ache we feel means something profound. We want to believe it is evidence of a deep and rare connection. And sometimes it is. But sometimes, what feels like love is actually your nervous system responding to unpredictability. Sometimes what feels like longing is actually your brain refusing to accept an incomplete outcome. Sometimes the person consuming your thoughts is not your person. They are just an unresolved question your mind cannot let go of. This does not mean your feelings are not real. They are completely real. The pain is real. The longing is real. The way they make your chest feel tight when you think about them is absolutely real. But the source of those feelings might not be what you think it is. You might be in love with a version of them that exists primarily in your imagination. The version that exists in all the possibilities you never got to explore. The version built from moments that felt significant in a future that never got to happen. And that version, the one your mind has constructed from pieces and possibilities. That version is always going to be more perfect than any real person could ever be, because it was built by your own mind for your own mind. Every beautiful quality got amplified. Every flaw got minimized. And the mystery, the uncertainty, the unknowing, gave your imagination unlimited space to fill in the gaps with exactly what you most wanted to find. Now let's talk about what actually helps. And I want to be honest with you here, because most of what you have been told about moving on is either incomplete or just wrong. You have probably been told to stay busy. You have probably been told to focus on yourself, go to the gym, pick up a new hobby, spend time with friends. And those things are not bad advice, but they miss the root of the problem. Keeping yourself busy does not resolve the open loop. It just distracts you from it temporarily. The loop is still there, waiting. And the moment the distraction stops, it picks right back up where it left off. What your brain actually needs is not distraction. It needs resolution. It needs the open file to close. And there are really only two ways that happens. The first way is actual closure. An honest conversation where things get said that needed to be said. A clear ending that the brain can recognize as an ending. Not every situation allows for this. Sometimes the other person is not available for that conversation. Sometimes reaching out would do more harm than good. Sometimes the relationship was never even defined enough to have a formal ending. But when real closure is possible and healthy, it is almost always worth pursuing. Not because it guarantees you will feel better immediately, but because it gives your brain the data it needs to finally close the file. The second way is something harder and more personal. It is the conscious, deliberate work of creating your own internal resolution. This means sitting with the story and actively writing an ending for it yourself. Not pretending something didn't happen. Not forcing yourself to feel fine when you don't. But making a conscious decision about what this chapter means, what you are taking from it, and where the story goes from here. Your brain does not need them to give you closure. It needs closure. And while the ideal version comes from the outside, a version you build yourself is more powerful than most people realize because it puts you in control of your own narrative instead of waiting for someone else to finish a story they may never come back to complete. There is one more thing I want you to understand before we finish. And this might be the most important thing of all. The fact that you cannot stop thinking about this person is not just pain. It is information. It is your mind telling you something about what you want, what you need, what you are looking for, what matters to you at the deepest level. The qualities that drew you to them, the moments that meant the most, the version of yourself you felt like when you were around them. Those things are worth paying attention to. Not because you need to find this specific person again, but because they are pointing you towards something real about who you are and what kind of connection you are truly capable of. Most people waste the experience of heartache. They just try to get through it and get past it as fast as possible. But the people who come out the other side with something are the ones who paused long enough to ask what this experience is actually teaching them. What did this person show you about yourself? What did the way you felt around them reveal about what you are actually looking for? What part of you came alive in that connection that has been quiet in other parts of your life? Those questions have answers, and those answers are worth far more than forgetting. You are not stuck because you are weak. You are not stuck because you love the wrong person. You are stuck because your brain is doing its job, protecting a connection it identified as meaningful, refusing to let go of something it was never given a clear reason to release. And now that you understand that, you have something you did not have before. You have a map. You know what is happening, and you know why. You know that forcing yourself to stop thinking about them will not work. You know that staying busy will only take you so far. You know that what you really need is resolution, either real or self-created, and that the feelings you have been carrying are not a weakness, but a signal worth listening to. So here is the question I want to leave you with. Sit with this one. The person you cannot stop thinking about, is it them you are really holding on to? Or is it the version of yourself you were when you were with them? Because sometimes what we miss most is not the other person. It is who we felt like we were becoming when they were around. And if that is true for you, then maybe the real question is not how do you get them back. Maybe the real question is how do you become that version of yourself without needing them to do it? Leave your answer in the comments. You might be more ready to move on than you think.